Hello everyone and welcome back to Bhanzu classes. So I hope all of you are enjoying the chapter rational numbers which we had started recently, and today we are going to talk about rational numbers in standard form and its comparison. But before that, what all we had done in the previous session? We had talked about positive rational numbers, negative rational numbers, and how do we represent rational numbers on a number line. I hope everybody remembers what are positive rational numbers. Positive rational numbers are the numbers where both the numerator and the denominator should be either positive or negative, both of them. But in negative rational numbers, either one of them should be negative, and for representing rational numbers on a number line, we had discussed few steps, so keep them in mind before you represent a rational number on the number line. Right? So let's move ahead to today's topic where we are going to cover rational numbers in standard form. Then we'll be talking about comparison of rational numbers where we will be comparing two positive rational numbers, two negative rational numbers, and one positive and one negative rational number. So let's get started with the standard form. What is the standard form in rational numbers? Let's have a look at it. And also, standard form can be called as simplest form as well. So for calling any rational number in standard form, we have two different categories which should be satisfied. The first one is numerator can be either negative or positive, but the denominator should always be positive, a very important thing. Second, 1 should be the only highest common factor between the numerator and the denominator. That means they should have only 1 as their highest common factor. If not, then we have to divide them by the highest common factor to convert them into standard form. Right? So these are the two important things. The first one, denominator should always be positive irrespective of the sign of numerator. And second, their highest common factor should always be 1. Right? Let's move to the next one now. To reduce a rational number to its standard form, first is divide the numerator and denominator by their HCF, ignoring the negative sign, right? Ignoring the negative sign, and then put it back. So we have divided by 3, which was the highest common factor. We got the standard form minus 4 by 5, and here you can see the denominator is positive. So these are the two important things you should check before you say that a rational number is in its standard form. Right? So moving ahead, what will happen if there is a negative sign in the denominator? What can we do then? Then you should divide it by minus of HCF. That is, the HCF which you have taken out, the highest common factor which you have taken out for the numbers, divide by the minus sign of it, right? The negative of it. So let's see, how do you write this number in the standard form? Let's do few practice questions now. 36 minus 24. So we saw that standard form, denominator should always be positive. Right? Now how can we make it positive? By dividing it with negative of its HCF. So divided by minus 12. 12 is the highest common factor, right? 36 and 24 both are multiples of 12, and because my denominator is negative, so we are dividing it by negative of 12. So what do we get over here? Here we get minus 3 and this would become plus 2 now. So this is where we can call it in the standard form. This is the standard form. Why? Because the denominator is free of negative sign, and second, the highest common factor is 1. So these 2 points to be checked out before you say a rational number is in its standard form. Got it? No problem. Let's do more practice question if you still have doubt. So if the question is minus 3 by minus 15. Now this time both of them are negative. So what should we do? We should divide them by minus of highest common factor, negative of the highest common factor, and the highest common factor of 3 and 15 is 3 itself, right? So what do we get? Minus 3 divided by minus 3 is 1, and minus 15 divided by minus 3 is 5. So this is how we get the standard form of the rational number. Got it? So whenever you see that there is a negative sign in the denominator, always divide it by negative of its HCF, because that will make your denominator positive. Since here the numerator was also negative, so our numerator also became positive now in the standard form. Got it? Great, guys. Let's move ahead to comparing fractions now, but actually we are comparing two positive rational numbers. So since we know that fractions are also positive and positive fractions can be called as positive rational numbers, so the method to compare the positive rational numbers is same as how we had learned for fractions. So if they are like fractions, just compare the numerator, because denominators are already the same. So here 6 and 6 are same, so we know 4 is greater than 2, so therefore 4 upon 6 is greater than 2 upon 6, right? If they have unlike fractions, then make with the same numerator, then compare the denominator. So smaller the denominator, greater would be its value. So over here 1 by 2 is greater than 1 by 3 is greater than 1 by 6. Right? Next, if they are unlike fractions with different numerator and denominator, now both are different. What should we do? Our job is to make the denominator same. How do we do that? By converting them into like fractions. Once you do that, then we will compare the numerator, and since we know 9 is greater than 8, so therefore 9 by 12 is greater than 8 by 12. Got it, everybody? Yes. So this is how we compare the two positive rational numbers, which is actually the same way how we used to compare fractions, whether the numerators were different, the denominators were different, or both of them were different. So same process we follow over here, right? So moving ahead now, if we have two negative rational numbers, and that too using a number line over here. So what are we going to do in this particular case? We have two negative rational numbers, minus 3 by 4 and minus 1 by 2. But since the denominators are not the same, we are going to convert them in like fractions. How? By making the denominator same. So for minus 1 by 2 can also be written as minus 2 by 4, which is one of its equivalent fractions, right? Equivalent rational numbers. Now the denominators are same, and we know that in negative numbers, smaller the number, greater the value. And you can also see on the number line. So number on right side of the number line is always greater than numbers on its left. So minus 2 by 4 is greater than minus 3 by 4. So whenever you are comparing two negative rational numbers and the denominators are not same, first thing you should make the denominators same by the concept of equivalent rational numbers. Once you get the denominators same, then you should compare the numerators, and you can also do it with the form of number line. Because on the number line, numbers on the right side are always greater than the numbers on its left. So moving ahead to, if you are comparing two negative rational numbers, we compare them always, ignoring the signs, and then we reverse the order. So what are we doing here? 1 by 2 is greater than 1 by 5, we know, because smaller the value of the denominator, greater the value of the fraction. But if it's having minus sign, then change it. Now the second number would be greater than the first one. So minus 1 by 5 is greater than minus 1 by 2. Got it? Yes. So this is how we compare two positive or two negative rational numbers. So moving ahead, if you have a negative and a positive rational number. Now this is going to be very easy, because we know on a number line, positive rational numbers are always on the right side, and negative rational numbers are always on left side of 0. So positive rational numbers would be always and always greater than negative rational number, right? So it's very easy. So if they give you 2 by 3 and minus 7 by 8, you don't have to check anything, you can directly say this is greater. Why? Because it lies on the right side of the other number on the number line. Positive rational numbers are always on the right side of the on the negative rational numbers on the number line. Got it, everybody? Yes. So this is how we compare the different type of rational numbers. Whether both of them are positive, both of them are negative, one of them is positive and the other of them is negative. The process remains the same what we had discussed. And now, minus 3 by 2 and minus 5 by 7. If you would have to compare these two where both the numerator and denominator are having negative sign in both the rational numbers. So that means they are actually the positive ones. So what you should do? First of all, convert them in standard form and then compare. How would you compare? The denominators are not the same. Convert them into like fractions first of all and then compare their numerators to get to know that which of the rational number is greater. Right? So this was all about today's session and now let's solve a practice question over here. Do 4 by minus 9 and minus 16 by 36 represent the same rational number? So what we have to do? First thing we have to write them in the standard form to compare them. So in standard form we know that the negative sign should never be in the denominator. Denominator should always be positive. So my first rational number becomes minus 4 by 9. Negative sign gets carried over to the numerator. And for minus 16 by 36, denominator is already positive. But now the second criteria which was divide them by the highest common factor to have 1 as the highest common factor of the rational number given in the question. So here we are going to divide it by 4 which is the highest common factor and we get minus 4 by 9. So this number also becomes minus 4 by 9. So yes, they do represent the same rational number. So for comparing them as the same rational number or not, we should convert them in standard form. So now let's summarize what all we had discussed in the session today. We had talked about how do we write the rational numbers in standard form, keeping the two criteria in our mind. The first is the denominator should always be positive irrespective of the sign of the numerator. It can be negative or positive. Second is always the highest common factor should be 1. If it's not, we need to make it by dividing it with the highest common factor. But in case if the denominator is having the negative sign, then we have to divide it by negative of the highest common factor as we have discussed in the session today. Then we talked about the second subconcept which was comparison of rational numbers. The first one was two positive rational numbers which actually goes like comparing of fractions only. Right? Then we have two negative rational numbers where we compare them using the number line also. But the important thing is the denominator should always be same before you compare them. Right? And a negative and a positive rational number, it's very easy. A positive rational number is always and always greater than a negative rational number. Because on our number line, positive rational numbers are on the right side of 0 and negative rational numbers are on the left side of 0. And we know numbers on right side of the number line are always greater than the numbers on its left. So this was all about today's session. Until we meet next, keep practicing, keep exploring and spark your curiosity. Bye-bye.